But anyway, 7:30, and I want to be conscious of your time. And I'm seeing lots of people join in. Thank you for being here tonight. As you know, with my own personal journey of mental illness and mental health issues with my dad, my own mental health stuff personally, and then my brother, and then recently my stepdaughter. I decided not to wait for my mental health documentary to be done. And what I did was I've been blessed to meet some amazing people, such as Justin and the other folks that we actually had before. And we have some people prior next Thursday that, you know, I saw that they were someone else that actually was out there doing the journey. And I wanted to be able to share some different kinds of answers because a lot of us feel that there aren't any. And I recently met Justin after seeing him in two amazing documentaries that I linked into my bio. So if you haven't checked them out, The Definition of Insanity and then Hidden in Plain Sight, you definitely have to see it. Justin, I was tripping because Hidden in Plain Sight took place in Rhode Island. It was a lot of stuff that happened. And, you know, I'm from Fall River, Mass, and I went to school in Providence, Rhode Island. So I was really, I knew about that story, but I didn't know that they had done like a whole documentary around the bullying aspect and that you were in that until I watched your documentary. So when I saw it, I was like, I got to find this guy, you know, having spent some time down in Brunswick, Georgia with the drug court program and seeing how they take off their adversarial hats to help those dealing with the disease of addiction versus throwing them in jail. I was happy to see the kind of work that Justin is doing in regards to the same, but from more of a mental illness, mental health issue, mental health care standpoint. And so, Justin, I'm so happy that you had time. I know you're super busy. I see some of my friends from Mental Health America have joined too, so I'm excited. I'm glad they're here. So, Justin, as you guys know, I've been promoting it. Justin is a peer support peer support specialist and/or counselor as well with the National Association of Mental Health Program Directors, and I'll let him tell you more about that. But just like those of you that have been in the amazing circles, I call them, of NA and AA, what I've loved just from interviewing, from dealing with, I say, hi, my name is Gina, I'm codependent, having family members with the disease of addiction, the support, the sponsors, and how important that is. So, Justin, talk to us. First of all, thank you again for being here, and talk to us about your own personal journey, and then I'll kind of ask more questions about the work and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gina, and good afternoon, good evening to everybody. I appreciate you guys making time to do this, and of course, I would do this for you. So I think when we were able to connect about the film before it's out, it struck me, and when you get a call for this work, whether it's personal or professional, it's the type of field where not everything always works out the way we want it, but people show up, and I think that's the biggest thing you could do is just be present and try to just show up and be of service if you can. And if it's just talking or sharing your story, I mean, it's really a privilege to be on the other side of that as opposed to be going through it or having, someone you love, experiencing it. So, to get out the other side is not only a miracle in the way the system is, but it's a privilege and a blessing that not a lot of people can afford to say. But so I'm a person in long-term recovery. That means substance use, mental health. I'm gonna be 40 this year, next month. So this
Birthday.
this is my first rodeo. Yeah, thank you. Same birthday as Jimi Hendrix. That's how you can remember my birthday. Okay.
Yes.
Couple years later, just a few. Just I grew up in Jersey, not too far from where you grew up in Massachusetts, probably a few hours, but Northeast mentality, um, lost lost one of my best friends in high school. Had a history of mental health in my family that wasn't really talked about.
Yeah.
Things were, especially culturally, But you know, they say culturally, like, oh, these people don't talk about these. Nobody really talks about.
Nobody.
Right, right. So we're not gonna say like some people less than more.
So,
I mean, you see a lot coming out in light now, and there's still, you know, different people that need to talk about it. That's why we do what we have to do, you know. But so they didn't talk about it, right? I had a grandmother that was institutionalized. I had an uncle with schizophrenia, institutionalized, you know, in and out the hospital. And you know, there was no the only thing I can look back on and say that like what I know now is that, you know, somebody with children knowing this history, you know, to educate and to talk about it, to try to steer that direction so it never doesn't have to go that way, you know what I mean? And that there's resources, thank God. But you know, so I lost my best friend in high school, and you know, I started to turn to drugs and alcohol, not really care about school, not really, you know, lose interest in a lot of things I enjoyed, and you know, alcohol, marijuana. This is the late 90s now. So like ecstasy got real big, cocaine. And I just was like, you know, that reward center in a young teenage brain was just like, this is all I need. I don't need to go to school. I don't need to do this. And, you know, I was able to work and, you know, we were like idiots. So, cause like when you're a kid, you think you know everything, you know, like you're just like outsmarted teachers and, you know, this whole system, right?
nothing's
And
changed.
I know you have teenagers, right? So,
Exactly.
they put, they put an undercover cop in our high school. And I don't know if you saw 21 Jump Street. Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Johnny
So,
Depp
yeah.
before he blew up.
So you're aging yourself on which 21 Jump Street you refer to.
I was
With,
two.
yeah, sure. And you know, so he was an undercover cop. We think he's like, you know, 16 years old. You know, that's how intelligent we are. And he busted a bunch of people, and
Whoa.
I got out of it. I never, as in, got out, and it didn't get caught. And you know, I said, you know, I gotta make a change. And staying clean to me was just drinking alcohol on the weekends and playing sports and moving more into like a jock role, you know, and that was acceptable. You know what I mean? But yeah, like throughout my story, every time like I say I want to take a break, I want to clean up, I was always dependent on something else.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was never just enough to be sober, to be alone with my thoughts, or, you know.
Right.
So I graduated high school. I was the first person in my family to ever get a high school diploma.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
It,
great.
it's crazy though, because, you know, I didn't realize it at the
Mm-hmm.
time what that actually meant, you know. So I I graduated high school, I moved out my house, I got jobs, and my brother was living in Miami. He's 10 years older than me. We have different moms. And I turned 19, so this is like 21 years ago, and he saw us partying, and he came up from Florida to Jersey to hang out with me on my birthday, and he saw us partying all night. And he was like, you know, I don't like these people that you're hanging out with. He says, why don't you, you know, they're all losers here. Why don't you leave Jersey and come with me to Miami and get clean? Well, I think you've been to Miami a couple of times. It's not,
That's not the place
right, screaming with sobriety when you get off the plane, you know? So,
at all.
so I'm 19 years old, you know, and just eyes wide open, and things just fast forwarded real quick. From 2003 to 2007, I must have moved about 10 different times. I must have worked about 2 dozen different jobs. I enrolled in a local community college. I had dropped out before the semester because I was working so much. And the reason I worked so much is because I had to buy my medicine, which was drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
So I probably could have worked less and been able to maintain a more relaxed lifestyle. But in my mind, to deal with the trauma I experienced as a kid and to deal with some of these issues that we never talked about, that was the only way to keep And
Hold on, I'm frozen.
you know, I would.
Hold on, let me.
You see me?
Oh, I gotta have you say that one more time because that was so powerful. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear
Oh,
you fine the whole
okay.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if
Just
it's me.
yeah, you said I believe you were saying it works until it doesn't work. Is that what you said? Because
Yeah,
that's just
it works till it doesn't work, and it kept those demons at bay until that it doesn't anymore. And the thing with addiction, at least for me, my story is that it never could stay at that consistent level. Like I know people that use recreationally that can smoke a little pot, that can have a couple drinks, and that's great. But I'm just not one of those people.
yeah.
If a little is good, more is better, and eventually my tolerance, builds up. And you know, I started to get strung out on some really heavy drugs. I got into crystal meth, and the meth triggered that predisposition gene that I had from my family.
Hmm.
So I didn't know it was sleeping, you know what I mean? And then some of these psychoactive drugs I was doing opened it up. And then once that door was open, at least for me, I couldn't close it again. And, I started to walk the streets on Miami Beach, paranoid, looking over my shoulder all the time. I got real skinny. I'm 6'1". I weigh 190 pounds now. I must have weighed about 130 pounds, yeah, stealing food from the restaurants I worked in, um, buying everything I could toward drugs and alcohol. I was just a wreck. And, I called my brother who was in LA at 3 in the morning in Miami, and I was paranoid. And I said, I was hearing voices, I'm seeing things that aren't there. This is experiencing of, what we could consider schizophrenia, right? And but I
Hmm.
didn't know I was going through it. So when you don't know, right, you're going through it, you take it as reality. And that's the weird thing that people don't understand about people with mental illness when they're symptomatic is that it's a very real world, whether it appears to you that way or not, And so I told him, and he said, man, stay right there. And he jumped on a red eye flight from LA
Hmm.
to Miami and was in Miami by 10 o'clock that same morning. And the airline forgot to charge his credit card.
Are you serious? That
Yeah,
was a miracle. That was a
it
miracle.
right, because it would have been like an $800 flight or something. He just went to the airport and jumped on a plane. And he tells me to get in the truck, and he says we're gonna take a ride. I hadn't slept in days, and I said we're gonna go somewhere. I need a beer, and I stopped to get an old English 32-ounce beer. It was warm, and we're driving up the 95, and we get to this rehab in Boca Raton, and these guys were like intervention specialists. They were like like the TV shows, like what they were in recovery. They had me. I was just there, and then before he's about to leave me there, they're like, it's gonna be $10,000 a
Oh my
month,
God.
right? And this this was almost 20 years ago,
Yeah,
right? So can you imagine?
40 now. It's like 40.
Right. So I'm like, I work at a restaurant. I make $8 an hour.
I
You
get,
know, it's cheaper to stay out there on the street, I think, at this point.
ooh,
So,
that's a
yeah,
goal. I'm
yeah.
taking notes.
So I left, and then we had an intervention. My family got together, and I was like, I have a job, I have an apartment. I mean, and that's the other thing we're going to talk about is like housing and equity. Like,
Yeah.
I was able to rent an apartment 4 blocks from the beach for $600.
Unheard of now.
Right, but it was nothing special. I wasn't in a high rise. The point of me telling you is that people used to be able to go through these struggles, and now there's such inequality that if you do struggle, I mean, you have to be perfect or be wealthy to be able to afford to live, and it's cutting a lot of people out and whatever.
Yeah.
That's a side note. I get to this rehab, and I stopped using this outpatient rehab, and I wasn't well again. I wasn't, despite, and I tell people, at least in my story, a good sign that you might have a mental health issue when the drugs or alcohol are present, and you feel that same way again. So I got paranoid, I got delusional. I jumped on a one-way flight to Jersey, some paranoid delusion, and I ended up getting hospitalized in Jersey. I didn't have any money, and I bought a one-way ticket to Jersey, got off the plane, and ended up getting what in Florida we call Baker acted,
Yeah.
which is like basically involuntarily hospitalized, right? So I was there for 3 weeks, Gina. They weren't going to let me out, and I was like, I get in there, and within I don't know how long, a couple of days, I meet somebody, and he says, you have an incurable disease. You can never smoke marijuana for the rest of your life, and you have to take medication. And I'm 22 years old. It's like, why don't you just cut off my arm? It's terrible. How could you say that to me?
You can never breathe again.
Right. Who are you?
Like 22 in Miami.
Right. So I wasn't leaving though, and I was taking the medication, and it did something, but I eavesdropped them at the nurse's station. They were like, he's not getting any better. We're gonna have to send him to Ancora. Ancora was a state mental health facility in South Jersey that was built in the late 1800s. Ancora is where my grandmother got electroshock therapy, and my dad said she'd come home and she'd be shaken so bad from the electroshock therapy she couldn't hold a glass of water. Ancora is where my uncle got locked up for the criminally insane when he committed a crime. And I'm like, oh no, I might be crazy, but I'm not stupid, Gina. I'm not going. So the next day, the doctor, he came to see me. He's like, how do you feel? I'm like, I feel amazing.
Great. Yeah, that's what happens. You're going to say that even if you don't, because of the answer that they got for you, which is the fear that the scary story that you were told as a kid about your grandma, and then now they want to send you there.
Yeah. I mean, and anybody that grew up in that area, like I'm sure where you grew up, like people talk about these places. Yeah.
I had,
So I got back to Miami. I was taking the medicine, and I was working. I started to put on some weight. I started to, do okay. I saved a couple bucks, and I said, I was clean for about, I don't know, 4 months, and I said, I'm gonna smoke. I think I'm okay. I'm gonna save the medicine because I feel okay, and I'll take it when I need it, right? Because I'm also inherently cheap. So if I can stretch something, right? Like when I get a gallon of orange juice, all the kids get about half orange juice, half water, right? I don't know. It's just, it's hereditary, unfortunately, right? So.
My mom with how many squares of toilet paper we could use.
Right. Don't get me started. That's out the window right now in my house. Okay. I mean, I'm about to get a bidet. I mean, I'm just not happy with the amount of toilet paper that's being used in my house.
Clean your ass.
So, what the hell was I saying? Oh, I started smoking and it didn't work out, right? And then I started to get worse. I started experiment with other drugs, and then I started to feel really bad, and I started to take the medicine again. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
Especially the type of medication like antipsychotics, they have to be in your system generally 2, 3, sometimes a month, for them to work and then stay working. Like there's a period where it builds up in your bloodstream. So it doesn't work like you take a Xanax and you're like, I don't feel good, I'm about to fly, I'm gonna take a piece of Xanax and relax. Like that's not the way typical medication works. Anyway, I ended up getting arrested. I lost everything, and I was 23 years old. I ended up in the ninth floor of the Dade County Jail, which is, they documented in the documentary, and the one on the Jail Diversion Program. And I'm gonna send you a clip from when they did an expose in 2006, and I was there in 2007, of the conditions, because it was horrific. I mean, I knew I had enough self-awareness that I did something wrong. I'm not one of these people that, you know, doesn't believe in accountability. And I think there's a big like pushback about, people just say they have mental health problems and they want to get out of things. And I'm sure that exists, but I was aware is what I'm getting at, and I knew why I ended up there. Right? It wasn't like, a deer in headlights. And but the conditions on this close psychiatric floor of the Dade County Jail, which is awful. People being beat down around the clock. The lights were on 24/7. People screaming. I was like, I wasn't well, and I to kind of, shed some light on how I was feeling. But like, I was like, am I still in this country? Like, is this
Yes, that
still,
sounds bad.
America? Like, what is happening? And
Torture.
I was in there for petty theft, and I was in a jail cell with somebody for attempted murder on his wife,
God.
and he was in there so long, he could barely walk, and he had pictures, like actual pictures from a file of a pair of scissors sticking out of this woman's chest.
What?
And he said, I stabbed my wife. And I'm like, great, I'm not sleeping now. I mean, like, are you kidding me? Like,
Hey, and
are you kidding me? Like,
pictures.
yeah, I mean, I don't know how he got these from the attorney, but it was like a legal file that he had, and there was actual pictures. And so what I didn't know was I was there for 6 weeks. They only let you out a half hour a week to take a
Wow.
shower. I didn't take a shower. I didn't
Half
shave.
hour a week.
Half hour a week
Oh my
to take a shower.
God.
Yeah. But there's a sign by the shower that says, if you have been raped, please call this number. So, I'm paranoid. So I'm like, I'm not showering. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I'm nasty. I'm so nasty, right? What I didn't know, I was there for 6 weeks. My family was in contact with my former program, which I'm going to shed some light on, that I worked with, called the Jail Diversion Program.
Hmm.
And they got people out of jail that had serious mental health and co-occurring issues. I had an eligible charge. I was documented mental health issues. What's that? How did I do that?
I don't know.
That was crazy.
That
Did
is.
I make it come up?
It must have been something you did. I don't know. That's so crazy.
I'm learning
Let
something every day.
me
They're like, you got in the program, thumbs up. Maybe somebody gave me a thumbs up.
yeah,
So thank
somebody.
you if you gave me a thumbs up.
Yeah. So I don't even know how they did that, but that's I need to know because that was cool.
So they get me out of jail. I get to the hospital, and they switch up my meds, and they put me in a recovery house in not a great area of town. It's called Miami Gardens, and I'm going to treatment in like this Overtown area outside the hospital. And I get on a van every day, and I go to the program. I had a check right from the restaurant. They owed me a check before I lost my job, and I went pick up my check, and it was like $1,000, and I just took off. I absconded, and I was on probation too. I met a girl in treatment, and the mother of 6 kids in a Section 8 house, and we just went through the money. And she left one day, and I was in that same condition. I was skinny again. I was in dirty clothes, and I was sitting there on the floor, and one of her boyfriends walked in and said, you got to get out of here. And,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Miami very well, but I'm in Liberty City. I'm
Yeah.
off like 50th Street and 10th Avenue, and I'm staying in Miami Gardens off like 160th and 27th Avenue. Point of me saying it's like 12 miles away,
Yeah.
right?
I filmed out there. Rapper Trina, she's from that area. We had to have a lot of cops come with us when we went out there to film her, obviously because she's famous. But yeah, I know it's a underserved community for sure, a struggling
Yeah.
community.
So I start walking from Liberty City to Miami Gardens about 6, 7 in the morning.
Oh, you
On
froze again.
54th Street, I make a right on 27th Avenue, and I start going by where Martin Luther King Metro Rail station is, and people are getting to work in the morning. They're going to work. They're holding their nose. They're going like this. They're calling me names. I'm like, oh shit,
Because that's a
right?
long walk too. How far is like? That's
12,
not close.
12 miles.
Oof.
Yeah. So the only reason I know that is because like I Googled it. Obviously, I'm not
Yeah,
like I'm
it's
gonna
just
walk 12 miles. Like I'm just walking. You know.
like
That's
half
it.
a marathon.
Yeah, this is before Uber too, right? Not that I would actually have a cell phone to call an Uber. Right?
I love it. We could just laugh about it because you have to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get back to the recovery house and I crash on the bed and the phone's ringing. Like it was ringing for a long time. And they're just like, you need to get back to program. Bam.
Oh, you
I passed my drug
froze
test.
again.
I went to court, closed my case. You hear me? You cut out for a second. You see me?
Uh, it froze again. So once you got the phone call, what was it?
I don't know if you're freezing. I think you might be freezing. I'm not sure.
Oh, I can see you.
Yeah. Anyway, I got the phone call. They're like, you need to go back to treatment. And I stopped doing drugs and I graduated the treatment program. I was leaving the courthouse. They closed my court case. I had to take a conviction though. And I was leaving the courthouse and they called me in the office and they were like, how would you like to work here? And I'm like, are you serious? And they were like, how would you like to work doing what you were just doing? And that's when they told me about the job.
Wow. And you thought you were getting arrested. Uh-oh. I don't know. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So you thought you were getting arrested and they gave you a job.
No, I closed out the case. I
Mhm.
was ready to go, and they just wanted to talk to me.
Okay.
And I was like, what do you want to talk to me about?
Mhm.
And
And
one second.
so while you were in there, you obviously you were already helping people get through their journey too, probably. Or was this a new program that they started at the time?
It started a few years ago. It started, I think, officially like early 2000s. So
Hmm.
it probably was around a couple of years when I got into it. But now I
Yeah, because Miami. I don't know why this is. I mean, I have full bars on mine. Let's see.
I'm connected to Wi-Fi. I don't know what's going on.
Me too. Let me shut my laptop. Make sure I'm not taking more down.
You look clear to me now.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just go with it.
Yep.
And then if it
Yep.
stops, just
I
stop
hope
me.
they
But
stop from getting the good information. That's all that is. Not the devil is a lie, I say.
yeah. Um what was I
So they
saying?
offered you the
So
job.
so so yeah, so I started working in the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like
Mm. I don't know why this keeps stopping. Keep talking. I can hear you.
yeah, you can hear me.
Yeah.
I
Am
don't
I?
know if anybody watching can tell me or tell us if one of us is freezing up. If you all want to put in the chat, I would appreciate
Yeah.
that. 'Cause
Yeah. I see that you just joined, Morgan. Can you let me know if you're seeing us freeze up? I think I see Level Studios in here too. Hey guys, can you let me know who's freezing up? I'm gonna make sure I don't need to leave the area that I'm in.
yeah, so I'm on the other side of things, and I'm getting people out of jail. And thanks, Rin. I'm getting people out of jail. I'm working in the community now. I'm greeting people when they're getting released and taking them to where they got to go, and I'm meeting with them. I'm getting coffee with them. Um, Appreciate it. Thank you. And all of a sudden I'm on the other side of the law and I'm trying to help people keep them out of jail. And Gina, I worked there for 14 years and I got thousands of people out of jail. I worked with amazing people throughout the years. I mean, some real angels in the system that that went above and beyond to help people get out the legal system, get out the street. And I could tell you stories for days. And not everybody, when I started, not everybody was given the privilege at recovery. And there's other outcomes that aren't so favorable, and they happen all too often. Right. We do this police training. I got involved with CIT, Crisis Intervention Team, something I still do, even though I don't work there anymore. And we have over 8,500 officers trained to treat people humanely and de-escalate if situations arise with people with mental health issues. And it's just a different culture. And it's not just like bag them and tag them, this guy's crazy. It's like, let's get him the help. And it's the training tries to build compassion for people with mental health issues and help resources too. Yep. So, I did that for a long time, and I did consulting. I did a lot of traveling, other courts and other programs, and sharing my story. So, at the Jail Diversion, before I left, we did a documentary, The Definition of Insanity, which is in your bio. And you shared a clip, right?
In the promo, I actually took some of the clips from the trailer, and I just used that one because I was able to get the trailer. They actually allow you to download it versus the Ken Burns doc. But what I did was in the bio, I linked both of the, because I created that little promo by using just your clips, obviously. But in the bio, you guys, you'll see both of these documentaries. Thank you, Markeisha. I see you. You'll see both of these documentaries in my bio, so you can watch the full. If you haven't seen them, you guys definitely have to see them.
What did you think of them?
I loved them. I love The Definition of Insanity because I can relate, with my brother's story that he shared. I love, of course, as a documentarian, I'm a huge fan of Ken Burns, and of course, anything he does is always going to be amazing. I like the take on Definition of Insanity because I had been studying what Miami was doing way before I met you. I mean, they were kind of pioneers in the drug and mental health court before it became nationwide. And you and I shared, we won't get into the story of why the other mental health with Mr. Rainey. We won't get into that, but I like that they opened the door and showed the truth of what was going on, even in the jail that you were in, and that you were a voice. But at the same time, I mean, I'm an empath. If I take on too many of people's problems, I can't help but be depressed about it. So how do you balance? And I know you want to finish your story, so we don't have to answer that question just yet, but I definitely know how you can balance that, because that's heavy stuff.
Yeah. Well, we got a few minutes, Gina. Talking about self-balance. I'm feeling better now. So before this interview, I had to take some self-care today, and I think it is a balance. And, I don't do, to be clear, so I don't do direct service anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't work for the court anymore. So, but when I did, I wasn't smiling like this all the time. Right. There was a lot different place, and I would take a lot home. So I'm not going to say like, oh, you just need to do yoga and meditate. Cause when people are like stressed out, you could tell people when they say that to you, you're like, yeah, you know what you could do,
Exactly.
Yeah. Just pray for it, just pray for it. Like, dude, like when you're in it, it's hard to just, lightheartedly give a solution to that stress. But what could I tell you? I would stay up worrying about people, that they were going to make it to the next day, that people I work with did pass, and that people were arrested, and programs did fail the community. And we cleaned up a lot of mess, and it was unfortunate that it's come to this. And that, I would always say, like one time a cop said something to me, that wasn't CIT. He saw somebody act out in the courthouse, and he said, that's job security. Like, as long as people acting like that, we're going to have jobs. And I always felt like, I wish I didn't have a job. That was that. I wish right? I wish things were, we lived in such a world that it wasn't necessary. Not that I wish I didn't have a job. You know what I mean?
Uh,
That like,
that mental
we
care
yeah,
that the same way as medical, medical care.
yeah, yeah. So, I play basketball. I did do yoga for a few years. We used to do yoga at the homeless shelter every morning with the guys, and it was great. The homeless shelter paid for like this amazing instructor to work with them for a while.
Yeah,
I'll send you his Instagram. You would like him. He's a really great guy.
I
He
would love.
tried to make me become an instructor, and it was like the court's like, we're not paying for you to be a yoga instructor. Like, what are you doing? Like, and I'm like, hey, just think about it,
Yeah,
right?
I told you I'm still training to be a trauma informed yoga instructor. It's important. I mean, not just for me to help others, but for myself. It's how I get my mental health care. Dealing with and a lot of family and knowing that there aren't really any solutions because I like you said it's at the end of the day it's about sometimes you said choosing what's out there is better because what's in there is too expensive or once you're they do a wallet biopsy and they kick you out the door because your insurance ran out and then what you know then what so in your opinion do you also think that we need to start getting like mental health care. Miami was also a pioneer in the Bertha Abbas Children's Center, which was there for 40 years before the real estate market closed it down. But a lady, Carol Jagger Jenkins, who I interviewed, she's no longer with us. She literally passed away a week after I interviewed her for my doc. She was she was the president over the organization that went into schools and did school-based mental health care. But you know, what's missing? Like, what do we need to do, as a community to start collectively coming together to make a change on it? Or, is it always about knocking on the doors of the political arena, or is it really, because you've also been in those doors as well. Like, what do we need to do today?
There's like no silver bullet with like anything, right? Like we can never say like, oh, we just need to build more homes, or we just need to, people access more treatment, or we need more peer support. Like it's like I don't know, it's a lot of things, right? But the mentality, um, and the will politically or financially is not there, and there's too much red tape, there's too much bureaucracy to get people help, to get different avenues of help,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
what works for one person doesn't work for another,
right,
right?
right,
And there needs to be different sources that people can get help at different times of their life, right? And then there's a whole movement toward, you know, maybe somebody's not gonna, work in the field, but maybe, doing better than they were doing is still an improvement, right? So meeting people where they're at, and that's where we're still putting a square peg into a round
yeah,
hole with a lot of things and saying that these are the avenues. You got to pick A, B, or C, and if you don't do it, then it's your fault, and you're not strong enough, or you didn't try hard enough.
yeah. And I with my dad I saw how the meds helped him. My dad was a musician. He was out in the street doing recreational drugs and got psychosis from a LSD. My brother has been verbal about his psychosis that came on after being a drug user and abusing Adderall, and it gave him psychosis, and I had a front row seat to the demonic side, the voices. Sometimes I think that they're really there. I think that we've been protected from that, and there's something in our brain that ends up exposing, like you said, what's been laying dormant at times. But it's no different than, sad to say, cancer, and the way that people are mistreated with mental illness. Sometimes it's just, a kid asked me today in school, is it just schizophrenia, bipolar? I said, no, it's anxiety, it's depression, it's anything that has been consuming you mentally and not making you feel well, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so why are we treating people with those same symptoms as someone who's not feeling well with my allergies, or, you know, like I said, I lost both parents to cancer, and just seeing that and how everyone rallied around them, you know.
Well, I wanted to back up for a second before I answer that. Do you know that there's a study I'm going to send you that it talks about people that hear voices in different parts of the world? It's a different tone, and that there's, spiritually and culturally, that's accepted in different
I believe,
cultures, right? And there it's looked at as a positive, not as somebody that's weak or not well. So I think there's still a lot that needs to be explored. There's still a lot we don't know about why things happen. And, I can't tell you, I can't judge everybody's experience, with that either. I just wanted to share that with you. But,
okay.
yeah, have you ever been to a cancer center?
No, my mom, I wanted to see if she wanted to go, and she didn't want to go.
I,
Um,
I, they thought something was wrong with me because of the meds that I took about 6 years ago. And they sent me to get the blood work. My white blood cells were really low,
mhm.
and they thought I might have leukemia or something. So they sent me to this cancer center in Miami, which was like the biggest, most immaculate building you've ever seen, right?
Right.
And I get there, and man, I've never been treated so well at an appointment in my life. They knew who I was when I showed up. They brought me a glass of water. They checked in with me every 10 minutes. They said, we're running a little behind. Have you ever, in contrast, been to the front office of a publicly funded mental health center? It's a shit show,
Yeah.
right? I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, you might wait hours. They don't really care. People are underpaid.
Yeah. That's right. Yep. And my mom, she got chemo, and I did go with her. She opted to do it orally, but different vibe. Diff- there's just a different vibe. I think you're freezing up again, but
Yeah,
hopefully we.
I froze for a
Okay.
second. I can't
Yeah.
tell I'm freezing, but you go quiet. So I'm trying not to look too dumb when I freeze, like get stuck, like you know.
Yeah, Michelle, my sis from Cali. I think I told you I used to work at Death Row Records. One of my sisters from my journey is on here today as well. Um,
Excellent.
yeah, I mean, it's just a different, you know, I saw it with my dad in the hospital. He had cancer, and the nurses were all nice to him, and then my dad's voices were speaking to him, and he was like shooting at the people that were disturbing him, and she was like, "What's wrong with him?" I'm like, "The same thing that you were just nice to him about, with his cancer. Be the same way." And she was just like, then she walked out. It was like, it's scary to them because they don't know.
Hmm.
um I just feel like, we need to continue to educate our kids so then they can see signs of it. I love that you were doing the CIT training with the officers, but I know it's still a different thing. I know that they had the thing where they put the headphones over the ears and they can hear voices to see what the person's going through, but it's like anything else, if you're not all the way in that person's shoes, when the time comes to be faced with it, unless they truly understand it, we're still seeing sad to say, too many lives taken because they still don't understand what they're dealing with. And 99.9%, I saw a study, a person dealing with mental illness or severely mental illness doesn't even have a gun. They might have a knife, if even. 99.9%.
Well, we could talk about that. That's why CIT is important, and I didn't talk about that. But if you are, black and have a serious mental illness, you're much more likely to be killed by the police, nationally, and that's just a proven fact. And that people with mental illness in general are the highest risk to be killed by the police, and it's because they don't know what to do. Like you just talked about, like the hospital. the
Yeah.
cancer center, the this. It's just there's a disconnect, and they're not trained to spot that. And that, with this building in 988, and looking at different responses, and that's why peer specialists are so important.
Yeah.
Gina, in 14 years, I helped thousands of people get out of jail.
Yes.
Some with violent histories, some with murder charges.
Yeah.
And not one time, Gina, did somebody get violent with me. I was on the street with them, maybe just me and them. There was things that happened. I'm telling you, it wasn't like I had a gun or I had protection. I had a lot of people. There was just times it was just me and other people, and there was a lot of bad situations, but I always was able to de-escalate,
Yeah.
because that's what it takes, that lived experience that people have been through. You know what I mean? To know how to deal with people. Because it's common sense to me and you to say, well, somebody's not feeling well. Let's talk them down. Let's talk about this. Let's not escalate it. I'm
Right.
not going to start
Right.
screaming at you if you're not doing what I'm saying. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, there was a lot of violence and abuse in my family already, and that's what I call my trauma and mental health issues, and physical abuse. I mean, my mom was from the old school, kick your butt, kick your ass, and I still, some of these kids might still need that, but you know, because of having that, because of coming from a very strong family in a city in Fall River called the Rib, which is tough. Even the old lady who works at the Italian grinder shop is a toughie. I think that, you know, when I moved my brother closer to me at one point, seeing it up front, I wasn't afraid of it. I mean, my brother's like 6'4", 6'3", 6'2", whatever he is, and 200 and something pounds, but I was able to de-escalate him. I mean, he had machetes at the time, and and other people were afraid of that. But I'm like, he's still this kid, my little brother, who you gotta, And I was able to talk to him. He never wanted to hurt me. He didn't want to hurt my kids. But unfortunately, I just think that we need to educate or put people in scenarios. I'm a filmmaker. Maybe we need to do some role playing. I don't know. I've been really trying to figure it out. I love what peer support specialists do, because the fact that you have been through it, I'm going to trust you if I'm going, when I'm going through it. I'm going to trust you because those things, like even like an NA and AA, but sponsors, they know everything, the secrets that you do to get the drugs, and then you feel like you're not being judged. And so I feel like we need more of that. Florida is also really good. Well, the Baker Act, I believe, is the only place it is in Florida, right?
No,
And so different
there's different
form.
ones. They just call it that in Florida, but not everybody loves that too, though,
Oh,
because if you're like in my situation, was that what I needed for 3 weeks, and
yeah,
I just went out and did the same thing,
exactly.
right? What I would rather have, looking back, I mean, every experience I had, has helped me in my journey. But I'm saying, what would anybody want? Nobody would want to be locked up and confined if they didn't have to be. They'd want somebody to talk to about what's going on, and reason with them, and share, walk the walk, not just tell you what to do.
Right. And that's why I kept questioning, like, where's this $4.6 billion for mental health care? Like, wherever it's going, like, it's not going to the people who really need it. It just, I'm trying not to cry, because it's really hard sometimes when you think, like, man, if you were struggling, you're dying of cancer, and you go to a hospital and they tell you that, just wait over there and sit in a gurney for like days until a bed becomes available, and then you act irate because now you're stressed that you're sick, and then they throw you in jail. You know what I mean? Like that's what they're doing to people with mental illness. And then they throw you in a horrific jail situation where you can't even take a shower. I mean, my stepdaughter didn't want to take a shower at the facility that she was at, because we found out later there were stories of rapes there. Who's policing those facilities? That's the other thing. It's become a money making thing instead of a care about people thing. And it's why I don't have the answers. I'm trying to create conversation, and I just can't thank you enough for being here, because I know that even our viewers or anyone that's on here now, they're going to trust you more because you've been through it. You're not just somebody medically talking about, I got all these, even though you have tons of accolades, it's like you've actually walked the walk. And that's, especially coming from the hood, that's where we really believe a person, when we know that they understand the community or the underserved aspect of where I've been through or been from. And in order for me to be able to trust that individual. And I saw you even in the documentary playing basketball with the guys. I mean, you're dealing with all walks of life, but you're so cool and easy to get along with. But at the same time, I do understand you also have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because then there was the instance of you getting all of these clothes in a housing place, and then the person just leaves because they lose they they don't have the whole circle of help that they needed earlier on. So it's like you're putting out fires afterwards, and it's hard because we didn't get to it at the front end.
Yeah, I mean, they say it's much easier to raise a child the right way than to fix a broken adult,
That's by
and
Frederick Douglass, and that's the first quote in my documentary, believe it or not.
really,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So I wanted
But
to
yeah, thank you so much, Gina. I mean, I really appreciate you taking the time, and it's been great connecting with you over the past few months. And I wish you the best luck in all your endeavors. And when you get that big budget for the film, you come down here, and I'll take a couple days off, and we'll get filming.
we're going to into a series where you might be the host of it. So
Okay,
God willing.
I'll make sure I have better Wi-Fi connection if that happens.
No, no. This time we'll come to get you. But does anyone have any questions? I want to be conscious of Justin's time, and we're getting ready to lose him here shortly. Does anyone have any questions that you'd like Justin to answer in the comments? Go ahead and send them out. So with regards to the peer support, while I'm waiting really quickly, with regards to peer support, is this something that you would suggest for anyone on here to seek one in the area, or what kind of thing, what would you suggest regarding someone that's already been through the system, a revolving door of the system, mental hospitals, prison, the whole nine? How would that be something that you would share in them, getting that for themselves as well?
As far as for help with somebody,
Yeah,
if
like,
they needed help. Yeah, the thing about peer support, it's like a mutual relationship. So like it's like, like you said, walking the walk and understanding people, but it's encouraging somebody to make the change themselves, right? Because you can't tell anybody what to do, right?
right,
That's not
right,
that never works out, right? So if you are just open and honest and just have conversation with people, it's like, and you're a reflection of what all peer support can share is their journey, how they got there. But that doesn't mean that that person has to take the same path. So I mean, I encourage it, but it's not the silver bullet either. But for people looking for more support and a different means in the community, look up peer recovery organizations, look at substance use and community mental health centers that have peer support. There's a lot of funding for recovery community organizations nationally now that are peer run, peer driven, and we can share some resources nationally with some organizations if anybody needs anything.
okay. So yeah, whatever you want to share, I can post it on my Young CEO, which is my nonprofit that I set up. Because as I was doing the documentary, people were asking me, what can I do? And I said, help a family, put some funding into a family, open a community center, hire people to be able to take care of their families while they're helping to take care of others. I know it's a big dream, but that's why I started the nonprofit. So I have a YouTube page. So anything you want to share, I could post it up there. Again, the links to the documentaries that Justin's in are in my bio. And I didn't see any questions. I'm sure you answered a lot of great stuff. And if it did, maybe it paused. But thank you again, my friends, for
All
being.
right, Gina. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And I appreciate you. Thank you so
All
much for
right.
being. And everyone
Uh,
that joined, have a good night. If you